Well, Citizens United made corporations people, so why is this corporation, which has admitted to killing 84 people, not getting the death penalty? Check this out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. Pacific Gas and Electric, PG&E in California utility, that on numerous occasions as it broke up and sold off pieces and all this kind of stuff back after the Enron scandal, here in Portland, for example, our city council actually tried to buy our part of what was Enron. It's now called PG&E here, but it's a different PG&E. But in any case, PG&E in California just pled guilty to killing 84 American citizens. They just pled guilty. Now, if you pled guilty to killing 84 people, this was because they had their infrastructure was old and creaky. The long lines, the high tension lines, snapped. It started a fire called the Camp Fire. That fire killed 84 people, and mostly in Paradise, California, as I recall. And they had been given literally billions of dollars over the previous decade to replace those wires. And instead of doing that, they took that money and they gave it to their stockholders and their executives, or much of it. So this company pleads guilty to killing 84 people. Now, if you pled guilty to killing 84 people, please tell me, how long do you think you'd be in jail? Do you think you'd have to pay a fine of $10,000 per person as your maximum penalty? I mean, this is nuts. When they want to, when PG&E says that they want to buy a politician, and they own a large number of politicians in the California Assembly and the California Senate, when they say that they want to buy a politician, they say, we're people. We have free speech rights under the First Amendment, which grants all the persons in the United States, all the citizens of the United States, grants everybody the right of free speech. And the Supreme Court back in 1978, the Bellotti decision said, as a corporation, we have the right to own politicians and influence the political process, which they've done spectacularly for years in California. So when it comes to owning politicians, they claim they're a person. But when they kill 84 human beings, we're just a corporation. You can't put us in jail. You can't put our executives in jail. They didn't do it. The corporation did it. You can't put the corporation in jail because it's really just a piece of paper. It's a document, the Articles of Incorporation filed with the Secretary of State of California. You can't put a document in jail. So, we're a person when we want to be, and we're not a person when we want to be. The simple reality here is that corporate personhood is a lie. It was a lie when corporations argued in 1886. Actually, the argument was in the fall of 1885. The decision came in 1886. But in any case, back in the 1880s, when corporations argued before the U.S. Supreme Court that corporations should be considered persons under the 14th Amendment, which had just been passed in the previous decade, which said that all persons shall have, basically equal access to the law, equal protection under the law. It's called the Equal Protection Clause. That's why I wrote a book about it called Unequal Protection. But in any case, back in 1886, the Supreme Court did not say corporations are people. In fact, they explicitly ruled against the Southern Pacific Railroad, which was arguing that it was a person. In not just that case, but 5 other so-called railroad tax cases in the 1880s. But John Chandler Bancroft Davis, the clerk of the court, former railroad president, son of a super wealthy governor of Massachusetts, in a head note, just a commentary, no legal authority at all, in a head note to that decision said, well, the Chief Justice said, we all agree corporations are persons. Well, yeah, he said that. What he meant was for purposes of paying taxes, not for purposes of the 14th Amendment. So anyhow, corporate personhood is a lie. It was a lie when corporations argued before the Supreme Court in 1885. By the way, the next year, I believe it was 86, it might have been 87, President Grover Cleveland, the only Democrat to be elected president of the United States in the entire period from the Civil War to until Woodrow Wilson came in. When in his State of the Union address, Grover Cleveland said, we're seeing, I'm paraphrasing here, we're seeing a massive accumulation of wealth at the top and corporations, which should be the carefully constrained masters of the people, have their iron boot on the neck of the average American worker. Look it up. Grover Cleveland. Iron heel was the phrase he used. It should be real easy to find. It's a shocking quote from the President of the United States. This is what he was talking about, this corporate personhood BS. It was a lie when the Supreme Court inserted itself in that clerk's head note. In subsequent years, it's happened like 30 or 40 times now, where the Supreme Court has referenced the head note in that 1886 case and said, well, back in 1886, in Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad, we decided that corporations are people. No, you didn't. It was a lie in 2010 when the Supreme Court of the Citizens United decision said, well, back in 1886, we gave corporates blah, 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 and took it even farther. John Paul Stevens, in his dissent in that 2010 Citizens United case, said that the reasoning of the majority of the court, because it was one of these lopsided decisions, 5-4, all conservatives. Well, he said, according to this reasoning, Tokyo Rose, the famous propaganda broadcaster during World War II, who would go on to the not just the general frequencies, but they would even broadcast her on the radio frequencies that the American aircraft flying in the Pacific Theater were using to communicate with each other. And they would suddenly hear this woman speaking English with a Japanese accent saying, "You are doomed. You are going to lose. We shall defeat you. Why don't you just give up now?" Right. So John Paul Stevens pointed out in the dissent to Citizens United, Tokyo Rose would be able to buy an American media company, essentially, under this. Tokyo Rose would have the ability to buy advertising and spread her message in the United States under this decision. And when President Obama, in January of, I believe it was January, it might have been early February, in his State of the Union address the following year, in 2011, when he said, the Supreme Court, I'm paraphrasing from memory here, the Supreme Court in its Citizens United decision just gave foreign corporations all this power. Sam Alito's sitting in the front row and he says, not true. He mouths it out. Well, it is true. And earlier this week, the Federal Communications Commission, based on a Trump recommendation, ruled that foreign corporations can now, up until now, they could only own 25% of an American broadcasting company. Only 25%. There was a Prince Talweed, or whatever his name is, the Saudi Arabian prince, owned 7% of Fox News. He sold that after 9/11. But, it used to be a ceiling of 25%. Now they can own 100%. Cumulus, the network Cumulus, was who asked for this. It's a couple hundred radio stations, and they're up for sale. Are they going to be bought by the Chinese? Are they going to be bought by the Russians? Are they going to be bought by, who's going to buy these Cumulus stations? Well, now it can be, so that doctrine, along with the parallel doctrine that money is speech, have become poison. And Reagan used this. Americans are sick of living in this oligarchy. Reagan used this 40 years ago to shift political power from the people to the massive corporations and billionaires. And here we are. The American middle class has been gutted over these last 40 years. Small and medium-sized businesses destroyed. Our environment and our democracy under assault. It's time to end this. PG&E should get the corporate death penalty for killing all these Americans. The company should be dissolved, its assets sold, its directors put in jail. Americans have had enough. We want our democracy back. We're sick and tired of this oligarchy. We need to either amend the Constitution or expand the Supreme Court to reverse these two doctrines that were created exclusively by the Supreme Court.